Hi, it's MANECO64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. It's Wednesday, August 23rd, 2017, and today I'm going to speak to Andreas Fink, who's the CEO of Cajutel, which is Telecom's company based in West Africa, and they're going to use the ICO market to fund their project there. So first of all, Andrea is going to introduce himself a bit and talk a little bit about his background.
Hello everybody, my name is Andreas Fink. I'm the CEO of Cajutel, and I'm an engineer at heart. I've studied electrical engineering at the ETH in Zurich and then went into software development. And in the 90s I started an internet provider called Pignet in Switzerland, which was like the first internet provider in Switzerland which was serving the large private public. Before there was like university and big companies who had the internet. So I went into the whole development of the internet from the ground up in the early days, and I sold that company in the end of the 90s to a pan-European company called World Online, and they went onto the stock market in 99 or 2000. Then I was working for Cisco Systems for a while for their voice switching products, because I had gained some experience while we became a telco. And out of that, then I founded a company called Global Networks, which was doing SMS infrastructure for mobile operators and a lot of products around the SS7 protocol. I also started a small virtual operator for one of the projects to do some virtual mobile services. And I have built up a data center in Iceland and a mobile operator in Iceland in 2007, and bought up a wireless ISP there and renewed it to a modern standard, and then sold it to the new 4G operator there. So this is what I have done in the background in the past, and we're now starting to do the same thing again in Africa, where they basically have the stage which we had in like 1994 in Europe. You know, they have the speeds and the access to the internet of that time, but in the meantime the internet has changed quite a bit, so it's quite hard to access the internet with those speeds they have down there right now. That's basically what we're trying to change.
I see. And can you tell us how you're trying to use the cryptocurrency ICO market to fund the project, and how, if people are interested in, donating to the Cajutel token, what it's going to represent, their ownership of these tokens?
Yeah, I mean, we decided to go into the crypto coin market because, first of all, I had some experience with crypto coins in my data center, because I had a lot of Bitcoin miners there. So this was not very, this was something I got interested in to understand how this market works. We originally were making the business plan and everything to get traditional investors. And it's kind of difficult to find investors who understand Africa and who understand the business model we're in. So we had problems to find the right people who really understand this business. And well, it's one of the problems you have when you're looking for a few millions, is to find the people who have those millions and are able to give it to you. And so we were trying to say, well, maybe it's more interesting for a lot of smaller investors who can invest smaller amounts and just take the risk. Instead of finding one big guy with 10 million, it's maybe easier to find 10 million people who have $1. So we looked at the ICO possibilities, and we saw a lot of companies doing very, very crazy things and getting funded in minutes, which I think is a little bit ridiculous, because some of those projects, I don't see really a value to it. Well, in our case, we are using an ICO in a more traditional way, which means we are raising funds against shares of the company. Because at the end of the day, if you have investors who put money down, they are expecting a return. They want to participate in your revenue, which you are building up, if they believe your story, of course. They take part of the risk by putting their money down, and they want to get part of their return. And the traditional way is you sell them shares. And what we are doing now with this ICO is we're selling shares against cryptocurrency. So whoever buys our tokens, they become shareholders. And this is probably a little bit different than to most ICOs out there, because they are selling you a token which represents some kind of revenue stream independent of the value of the company, which might work, which might not work in some cases. And they are trying to bypass the regulation which are there for shares in the first place. And we are not trying to do this. We're just saying, whenever you buy into Cajutel, you are buying shares, period. And you have the rights of a shareholder, and we're not denying this. So
and that's all written in the contract that you write on Ethereum. Is that how it works?
Well, this is not directly the smart contract. The smart contract is more in the attribution of the tokens. First of all, what we did is we took a shareholder decision that we are saying, okay, all shares of the company are being represented by tokens.
I see.
And if you see this on the stock market, in the old days, you had a piece of paper saying, you know, this is 1% of a company called X with the value of Y. And whoever holds that paper was the shareholder. In our case, we just move away from the paper and put it electronically, and we just say, whoever has this token is a shareholder. So what we did is we converted the existing shareholders into token holders. And we took the company decision or shareholders' decision to issue additional shares / tokens, and we put those tokens onto the ICO.
I see.
So there's not that many tokens in our case. They're being sold now on the ICO, and people who want to buy it, they want to send us Ethereums in this case, and they want to get the tokens in exchange. So what we put up is a so-called smart contract, which we loaded into the system, that whenever somebody sends in Ethereums to the address which is listed on our page, they automatically get Caju tokens assigned to them according to how many tokens are left. So if you are getting early into the game, you get them cheaper. If you get later into the game, you pay a little bit more. And if there's no token left, then you get you don't get any tokens anymore.
I see.
Then the contract cannot execute.
I see. And then the ICO period ends on September 18th, right?
Yes, unless we sell all shares before that.
And then once the ICO period is finished, those tokens you'll be able to trade them publicly?
You will be able to trade them privately, and we're actually working to put them up into several cryptocurrency exchanges where you can trade them later on.
I see.
That should not be a problem. I mean, you can easily transfer them today, but of course, if you have a unique platform, then it's easy to transfer them through the platform.
All right, so let's go and let's talk about Guinea-Bissau, which is the country where you want to start out this project, and and what it's all about, and why you think your company Cajutel has an advantage over the competition, and also the potential for the business.
Okay. Guinea-Bissau is an interesting country. It was originally a Portuguese colony, and it gained independence in the 70s. And then there were some civil wars because the warlords of the different regions started to fight for who will now be the big boss of the country. But this ended, and now the company has a very stable political situation. And this has also moved to the fact that, you know, the World Bank actually gives investment guarantees for the country. So if we are going into this country with our project and we file the plan with them, they give us an insurance that if tomorrow we have a big dictator destroying everything, we get returned all the money we invested and all the potential earnings we would have had. So that's that far that the World Bank actually goes. And they only do this, of course, if they are assured that the political environment there is stable and the people are really behaving in a democratic way. So they had several elections recently, and the people who have voted, they have voted some people into the government which are oriented in getting things done, in getting the company, the country into better shape. So they're trying to improve the situation everywhere in the country, and you can see that when you're there. And so this has changed a lot the last 10 years. And if you look at documents, sometimes it paints a much scarier picture. But then you have to look at the dates of those documents because they're totally outdated by these days.
I see.
So what we're trying to do there is we're trying to build an internet infrastructure which the whole country can use so they can access the internet in a high-speed way. One of the reasons why there's nothing there is because the sea fiber which goes along the coast, they have not landed the sea fiber cable in Guinea-Bissau because when they built it, the government was not stable. So they connected Senegal, they connected Gambia, they connected Conakry, but they didn't connect Guinea-Bissau, and that's the reason why the internet speed is so slow there. And the two operators which are there, which is Orange and MTN, they just use some microwave links across the border, or they use some satellite links to provide the service. But they cannot really do much in terms of bandwidth. So the average bandwidth in Guinea-Bissau is 100 kilobits, and it costs like $60 to $80 a month, depending on which ISP you use, to access the internet. And with 100 kilobit, you know, taking even a normal web page, which is an average of 2 megabytes, you know, takes 2 minutes. And if you think of opening a web page which takes 2 minutes, then you quickly understand that the internet is just not usable. And that's why there's not many people using it. It's like less than 2% of the population. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring high-speed access into the country, and for that we have to lay a little bit of fiber to bring the capacity into the country. And then we build up radio towers all over the place to actually distribute the bandwidth to the end users. So the end users can just put an antenna onto their roof, they can use Wi-Fi in their home or wire their computer to it, and then they're going to have fast internet access, so they actually can watch video and TV in full HD resolution. That's our aim, which is currently totally impossible. So they not only get access to the internet, they also get access to the world with this, because they can watch TV from other locations, and which is currently like impossible. You can watch like 2 national TVs and that's about it. And you know, by having access to information, you also generate a second revolution in the country, because it's going to improve education, it's going to improve the openness against the world, to better understand what's happening and to let the people communicate.
Oh, yeah. So what about like can you talk a little bit about how much you're trying to raise and what kind of returns and when you will be profitable and the return on investment period, a little bit about the numbers.
Okay. The project is very capital intensive. This is just the nature of telecommunications. But in Guinea-Bissau, it's maybe a little even more capital intensive because you cannot build anything based on somebody else's work. Like if you go into a European country and you build a wireless network, you probably can use fiber, which is existing in the ground, to interconnect the sites together. And in Guinea-Bissau, there's just nothing. It's as greenfield as you can imagine. So you have to build the towers, you have to build the fibers connecting the towers, you have to build the microwave links, you have to build the power infrastructure, because you cannot rely on the power which is there. So you have to build a lot more than in most other places where you can just rent a part of the thing which is already there. So the disadvantage is we need a lot of capital to do this. We calculated that we need 30 million for Guinea-Bissau and Guinea. If we only do Guinea-Bissau, we need about 12 millions and dollars, and everything in between we will see. We will just develop as fast as we can with the cash we have. So it's quite flexible between 12 and 30 million. We can do we can adapt the plan by building faster or slower, and depending on the possibilities and the pickup rate and so on. The company is profitable in less than a year. I mean, as soon as we get customers paying us, we are profitable, more or less. And in less than 4 years, we have the point where we have a return of investment. So what we do is, if we make profits in the first year, those profits are immediately reinvested to build the infrastructure further. Because when we start, we're going to probably only cover the city of Bissau, which is 500,000 people. And then we start to grow and go to the next village and to the next village and to the next village. And so this is gradually adding the possibility to serve more customers. So the customer base is also growing along the way. And all the money we then start to earn in Bissau, we then use to build additional cell towers along the way. And once we have reached a certain amount of towers, we basically don't need to build additional towers, and then that's where the real profit starts to kick in. And we expect that to be in like 3.5 to 4 years, that we reach the point that we have basically covered the region as we want, and then we start to have quite good profits. So I don't have the Excel right in front of me, but I think in year 6, we had planned to have a revenue of like EBITDA of $68 million, if I'm not mistaken. And, we were sitting on cash of like $150 million. And if you take those figures, multiply it with the value of what other telecom companies are currently being valuated at the stock market, then a share could be worth like $1,000. Maybe it's only $300, maybe it's $500. We don't know. This is difficult to tell, and it depends on a lot of factors. But there is a real value because there's an infrastructure behind it, and every token you buy represents a piece of the cake. And the cake is the whole company, which owns a lot of assets. And those assets were not going away.
So how much is the token worth, roughly now in US dollars, would you say?
It depends on which phase you get into. In the phase 1, it's something like $16 at the current exchange rate of the Ether.
Yeah.
One token is sold in phase 1 at 0.05 Ether. And in phase 5, it goes to 0.2 ethers.
Yeah.
And so it depends when you get in. So
I see. So right now,
it's much cheaper.
Right now, it's around $16 to get one token.
Yeah.
We're still in phase 1. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's 720,000 tokens being sold in this ICO, not more. Which means the price of a token is relatively high if you compare it to other tokens.
Yeah.
But the value you get in a token is also much higher.
Of course.
Because we're not having a gazillions of tokens.
Yeah.
And you always have to put this into relation because the
absolute
value of the token is totally irrelevant.
Sorry, yeah. It's like Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. He's never diluted his shares, and they're worth like hundreds of thousands each share, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I mean, with cryptocurrency, it doesn't really matter. I mean, with traditional shares, you can say, well, if you have one share being worth $100,000, then, it's difficult to buy just one share.
Yeah, of course.
Because you need a lot of cash.
Yeah.
While in crypto coins, you can just buy 1/1000th of a share. It doesn't really matter. It's fractional shares are just...
So that's quite interesting. So you can end up having less than one Cajutel token.
Yeah, you can have half a token.
Oh, I see. So that's good to...
one micro token or whatever.
That's interesting to know. Okay. So, yeah, so should we wrap up here? And, I mean, can the feeling I get about this ICO is that yes, it's risky, it's in Africa, but at the same time, it's something that is, I wouldn't have thought of, it's not like very mainstream. The other point I like to make is that it seems to me, yes, maybe, if you go through the process in stage 1 and buy some tokens, once it comes out in the end stage, you could make some money. But my feeling is that this is more of a long-term investment of a real business. Can you just wrap up and tell us a little bit about what you think?
Well, of course, I mean, the value of the token is always valued by the buyer. And if I compare the situation back to the internet boom in the 2000s, there were lots of companies being totally over-evaluated and a lot of business being going to the stock market and getting crazy amounts, and then at the end they were not worth anything a few years later because it was totally overvalued. In our case, it's more a traditional business, it's more long-term than it's short-term, but if tomorrow there's a big hype, the share might go through the roof.
Yeah.
But I would guess it will come back to realistic values later on.
Yeah.
While others might go to the roof now and then fall to the floor.
Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to say it was really nice speaking with you, and I hope the viewers have had a clear, picture of this ICO. Cajutel. I made a video about it yesterday, so it's nice that you came on today. And I'd like to wish you all the best of luck with the process.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.